Alright, Chapter 8, Winning Strategy Based on Counting Tens. Strategy discussed in the chapter, the 10 count strategy was the workhorse winning system introduced in the first edition comparable to the power of the complete point count. The expert should know that both systems, the beginner should attempt to master only one at first. Raiders who know of the point count may either skip this chapter or read it throughout quickly. The advantages of strategy finds of the player generally range from 1 to 10%. The larger advantages yield heavy winnings. The smaller advantages give the player camouflage with natural, and the strategy adds to the point with the count methods vary with the bet size with advantage. The small steps all the way with small weighting bets. Several times these bets, these less conspicuous of just two kinds of bets are large or small. Another camouflage advantage of detailed 10-count strategy is that the player decision greatly depends on the composition of the unused deck. Suppose, for example, dealer has an ace up. Sometimes the player should hit a hard 17. Others, he should stand at a hard 12. Might wonder, in a view of the table 4-1 strategies based on 10s could give a greater advantage than one based on 5s, card for card. 5s are more effective than 10s. 4 10s added to the deck give the player an advantage of 1.89%. Whereas 4 5s removed from the deck give the advantage of 3.58%. The solution is that there are 16 tens in the deck, only 4 and only 4 5s. Therefore, much greater deviations from the average can occur with the number of tens than in the number of the 5s. Effective player advantage and proportion of tens vary. The richer the deck and tens, the better off the player is generally. We shall now think of the deck as divided into two kinds of cards, tens and other. During playing, we shall keep track of the number of others, the number of tens have not yet been seen. Thus, with the 10 strategy, we take into account only the cards we see as we see them. From the two numbers, we shall determine the 10 richness by computing the ratio as others over tens, as others to tens. For example, so the complete deck is shuffled and prepared for play. The complete deck count is 36 as other, and 16 tens, and simply 36-16. Corresponding ratio 36 to 16 is 2.25. Approximately advantage shuffle ratio values given in table 8.1 for quick reference. Learning to count. Our first goal is we'll be able to learn kept count over the other tens you will be played while playing with the standard strategy. Here's an exercise which should be done as preparation and learning to count. Take a shuffle complete deck, turn the cards over one at a time, count. Then drop the face of the decimal pile. For the example, I have just picked up the deck of the writing of a deck on my writing desk. 1 count, 36 and 16. 3 spades, 35 and 16. 5 clubs, 34, 16. 3 hearts, 33, 16. 4 diamonds, 32, 16. The ratio is now 2, 0, 0. Hands dealt now giving the player a 1% advantage at table 8-1. 3 diamonds, 6 spades. Queen of Diamonds, 30-15. A few cards at the end of the deck. Stop it and record your count. And see if the remaining cards agree with your count with your count of them. In an example above, I stopped my count. It was 2 to 1. And the last 3 cards were deuces and clubs, 9 of clubs, and the king of clubs in the agreement with the count. First time to make may take you 2 minutes or more to go through the one deck without any mistakes. However, you should be able to drop your time in 6 to 8 15-minute practice sessions to between 25 and 50 seconds. 50 seconds is more adequate. 25 seconds is excellent. How I had trouble getting below 25 seconds until I found it takes me 20 to 25 seconds to turn over the cards whether I count them or not. For who wants to push this exercise and limit, there's a way to break 25-second barrier. Move the few unknown cards spread with the remaining cards face up in a row and know if each of the cards showing on them may easily be identified. Then count by reading left to right from right to left. You should learn how to be equally easy reading in either direction. Your count should check against unknown cards that were removed shortly after I have practiced spreading the cards for the rapid count. The opportunity to use the skill was examining with a certain casino the skill, see if it cheated, and began naturally watching the table to where most of the money was being risked. After the shuffle, it was the casino's practice to have the dealer place a joker face up on the bottom of the deck to separate the used cards from the unused ones. At the end of the one deal, the Joker had vanished. The amazed players examined the deck. Dealer spread in spread fashion, then scooped it up again in about 4 seconds. Even with a rapid count, I could only count first 12 cards. Players demanded a closer look at the deck. This time, the dealer gave them 10 to 15 seconds. When I reached 38 cards, the dealer began to scoop them up again slowly. I could only quickly counted the number of cards remaining without regarding the denomination. There was 20 left. The deck had 58 cards. Of course, the dealer still had not allowed the players enough time to examine the deck. They called the new deck, requested for the pit boss, examined the old one. He counted the old deck off to one side, holding it in such a way that no one else could count along with him. When he finished counting, an odd expression flickered across his face. Then, without offering a word of explanation to the players about a recent puzzling events, he left, taking the old deck with him, trusting the players continued in the game, and soon forgot the matter. The pit boss had accurately judged the naivety. While increasing the continuing speed of the exercise, you also practice maintaining count. Someone deals you, and you play with the basic strategy, heavily slow it enough that you can count easily, play with the chips, and start it with 200 units before each hand. Use your count to estimate the ratio of the vary of the bets according to the scheme in the table 8-2. Roughly speaking, whenever the ratio is between 2 and 1.65, we are betting twice as much in units over the advantage of the 2%. We level off at 1.65 to 5 units or so variation bet size, not unduly alarm of the casino. You need not to perform divisions in your head. Figure out the ratio exactly. Rough guesses say to within 0.1 or 0.2 are very satisfactory. Insurance. There's one important change of the standard strategy that you should take into account. Whenever the ratio is less than 2, taking insurance of the opportunity dealer's up card as an ace presents itself. If the ratio is 2 or more, do not insure. This is reasonable if the deck is 10 rich and the dealer shows ace. It is more likely than unusual to have blackjack. You're allowed to check your whole card. You're allowed to check your whole cards, and you may have been able to see other players' whole cards too before insuring. You have also seen the dealer's up card. Also, you have taken into account you wish for deciding whether to insure. You can calculate either the player or the house. An advantage from the insurance bet whenever we know the number of tens or non-tens. We illustrate with the calculation in that case in which hands are being dealt from one complete deck. The situation represented by the average house advantage instance for the dealer's up card is an ace. Since the dealer ace is visible, there's 51 possibilities for the whole card, assuming that the moment of simplicity that we do not use our knowledge of our own 2 whole cards as well. 16 at which are tens, and on the average of the player wins twice the amount is insurance wager 16 times out of 51. 31.4% of the time the bet is lost 35 times out of 51. Average house edge is 35 to 5 times negative minus 2 times 16 divided by 51, which is 3 and 51 or 5.9%. If you wish to take an account with your whole cards, therefore 3 case considered. If your whole card is 10 and 10, the house edge is 35 to 49 or minus 2 times 14 to 49, which is 7 to 49 or 14.3%. If there is a 10 and an X represents a non-10, the house edge is 34 to 49 times 2 to 15 to 49, which is 449 to 8.2%. Holding at XX, the house edge is 33 to 49 minus 2 times 16 times 49, which is only 1/49 of 2%. Insurance was originally introduced in casinos as just one more way of fleecing the player. The ironic that they bet provided the average advantage for the casino can be turned against the house. The trick of the course is simply more than we have been doing all along. The average house advantage is 5.9%, but there are times when the advantage is favor of the player. At these times, the insurance otherwise we do. At these times, we insure. Other times, we don't. For example, when you count before the deal is 10-10, the player's average profit on the issuance of the bet is 2 times 10 divided by 19 minus 9 minus 10, which is 11/19. A healthy 58% of the amount of insurance. Once I played a large club in Reno, I noticed it's had no insurance bet since one of the owners was standing by my elbow. I had belonged to win rapidly, and they had rushed up to stop me. I asked why there was no insurance. He said that because it hurts the player. It was taken out for their benefit. The larger bettors generally are human or give little privileges. I asked that I allowed to insure and explained that if it gave me a feeling of security when I made large bets, When the count was 10-10, for example, my request refused without explanation. I later learned that one player was using end play. Discussed later, the insurance roll card counting has taken at least $40,000 from casinos before he stopped. Many dealers and players alike share two widespread misconceptions about insurance bet. They often annoyingly, inconsistently insistent that the attempts to correct the player does not share the view. First misconception is that players should always take insurance if possible. The natural. The argument is that the dealer has the natural also with the hands himself will all tie, but insurance bet wins 1 unit. If the dealer has no natural, the player natural wins 1.5, and his insurance bet is 0.5 unit is lost. Again, win is 1.0. In either case, the player has a sure profit of 1. Why not take it? First, I will show you that there's a case which the insurance bet is wasteful. Suppose that you're counting tens and non-tens, that after you receive the whole cards before you decide whether or not to take insurance, you find that all tens have been played. In the event that the dealer cannot have a natural, if you insure your natural, have the sure profit exactly 1 unit, and discuss above. However, you know that your natural is the winner. So if you don't insure, you have the sure profit of 1.5 units. For this instance, is to ensure to throw away the 0.5 unit. Now, suppose the check of the deck has only 1 10, say 8 non-tens left. Should you insure? No, because even through the insurer bet may win, you probably throwing it away. On the other hand, if the remaining cards were tens, and the dealer would certainly have to have a natural. Also, insurance wins 1.0, 1 unit for its unit for you. If the imagination we let the deck get richer and richer in tens, there ought to be some critical point beyond which the insurance is profitable below the unprofitable. The same point recommended above, the ratio falls below 2. Insure the which is above 2 does not insure. It's exactly 2. When it's exactly 2, there is in the long run no gain or loss on the average. You can do as you please. Actually, in this insurance. Sure, the natural reduces fluctuation in your capital, thus you have the limited capital. There is a minor advantage of doing so for the ratio exactly 2.0. Same arguments apply with a greater force. The second misconception, insure for the good hand does not insure for the poor one. Strategy tables. There's a complication given in the 10 count strategy for the best possible play, but it must vary with their strategy for the ratio, vary for each ratio for the corresponding strategy. Fortunately, all separate strategies can be combined into a single chart given the table 8-4 or better. In table 8-3, with the player using table 8-3 keeps a running count. That is, he keeps track of the cards as they appear, which is up to the second information. He's able to play his hands with a great precision. Many readers of the first edition became experts with table 8-3 and table 5-3, in which in that edition. Table 8-3 and 8-4 have usual format with one exemption. Some of the squares, instead of a symbol being shaded, they have numbers. In this case, the doubling down pair splitting these numbers are to be interpreted as follows. The ratio is equal less than the number in square. Consider the square shaded that is split. Pair down, the ratio exceeds the number under the square. Consider the square bank with it does not split with the pair or double down. There are 2 numbers marked where the asterisk of these numbers have the opposite interpretation. The ratio is greater than such a considered square shaded, otherwise consider it blank. Refer to table 8-3. Read the minimum standing number as charts as follows. So all standing numbers are the same in the basic strategy, except for the dealer's up card is an ace. In this case, it is 18 usual with the ratios of 2.2 or less. It is 19. The ratio is above 2.2. The harder standing number against an ace is 17. As usual, the ratio is less equal to 3.1 but greater than 1.4. For the ratios between above 3.1, it is 18. Hard standing number of the up cards of 2 through 10 through for the ace for the ratio of 1.4 or less reads all as follows of the chart. For given the ratio shades, all squares have the numbers greater than or equal to the ratio. The lowest shaded square is correct for the standing number. Alternatively, one might think of all the squared numbers greater than or equal to the current ratio as the goal, drawing until your total equals exceeds the total represented until these squares. For example, the dealer shows a 4 standing on the numbers are 12 with a ratio of 2.2 or less, 13 with a ratio above 2.2 but less than or equal to 2.6, 14 ratio of 2.6 but less or equal to 3.3. Notice hard standing numbers against cards 2 through 6 are dropped by 12 to 12 by the time when the ratio drops to 2.0, which is the point at which we increase our bet size. We recall the hard standing numbers for the cards 2 through 6. We also are equal to 12 for the 5 count strategy. As the ratio becomes larger with a corresponding shortage of the tens, these are hard-standing numbers rise. They reach 17 against the 2 when the ratio is above 3.9, against 3 when it is above 5.0. Most important part of the strategy is to incorporate into your plan the standing number chart that gives you the most theoretical advantage. However, if you wish to add other strategy to the order of the importance, same with the standard strategy for the first learn hard doubling, then pair splitting, soft doubling last. Memorizing table A3 for the entire seems too much work. When I began to play with the casino with the 10 count strategy, I only knew the approximately standing number of the double down parts of the table A3. For soft doubling, I knew that even less. I played the standard strategy until the ratio fell between to 1.4. Then I doubled down on all of the soft totals from 13 to 20 against the cards 2 through 6. The time and again, the dealer had smiled as though I were insane with a double down on soft 20 turned into the poor total for the butt. The smiles have disappeared when they bless themselves. The running event sometimes yields again the end of the deck because the player can figure out which with the dealer whole cards player hand in which made a difference of $250. I had a bet 125 with a glimpse of off the other players of the whole card, so when I turn came, I was the last to play. I knew the 2 cards remained, but both tens of the dealer holes card was therefore a 10. Only one card 10 remained unplayed. If I were to draw it, it would be offered. The dealer would see it was the last card. As customary, he would put it back and shuffle. The dealer had 10 up, and he had 20, and I had a hard 18. If he had nothing, I was sure to lose. I attempted to draw, but the card as predicted there was only one more card. The 10, so the dealer pulled it back and shuffled. I attempted to draw again. When I saw the card, I almost fell off my chair. It was a 3 for a total of 21 and a win. When the dealer turned up my card in astoundment, my dealer drew a hard 18, barely able to explain it. It seems the same day saying that I added my cards to 15. In the same situation arose half an hour later, except I had hard 19 against a sure 20, and I did not dare seek an ace to tie or a deuce to win. When there are other players at the table, you have not been able to see the count some of their cards by the time it's turned into play. It's profitable tag, particularly near the end of the deck, with the big bets involved to make the inference of these cards are to give the inference with modified with the behavior. For example, suppose the count is 9-6. After you've seen the dealer's up card, you have your own cards. The fourth of the 4 players, first of the 3 players stood without hesitation on their whole cards. Their interference quite strong. They each of the hold 1 and perhaps 2 tens, estimating their whole cards to be 4 tens and 2 non-tens. True count of the purpose of the draw of perhaps 7-2, and hence the dealer showing an ace, you hold hard at 14, 15, or 16. You should draw rather than stand. It's even likely that you should draw a hard 17 in this instance. Learning strategy table. During the writing of the book, I taught the system several people with diverse backgrounds and interests. One the person was to see whether the card counting method of the charge of the chapter keep charge of the first edition more difficult one could readily be learned without exemption. Everyone discouraged from the first solve of the table A3 and A4 when he told me he would have the count the card. Nearly everyone surprised the speed at which he learned. A couple of 1-hour practice sessions with someone else dealing generally enough to fix the basic strategy. 2 or more 1-hour sessions were enough to teach him simplified 5-count system. But almost everyone gets impatient when waiting for the relevant, infrequent, favorable 5 less situation. 2 to 5 additional 1.5-hour practice sessions, plus some counting practices, are usually enough to teach the player to count tens and non-tens and vary the bets accordingly. While they still play the basic strategy signal, the remaining problem is memorizing one of the tables will illustrate the method of the memorization that has been worked out by experience. First logical step to learn parts of the table A3 have to do with the big bets, namely when the part of the involving ratio of 2 1/4 or less of the favorable decks. This is the information given in the table A4 approximation. Table A3 for the practice of the 10 count strategy played. Bigger bets, basic strategies played, else otherwise one might think of the table A4 with the basic strategy plus some modifications labeled. Learn table A4 in several stages. Begin with the standing number of the table is most important. With the most tables in the book, for the table is more easily learned in one looks pattern. For instance, against the 9 change of the ratio between square and 3 tens. For the against tens change is not very regular, but the tens for the 2s and 3 and 4. And note However, the training number drops from 17 to 16 if the ratio drops 2.2. Fairly slightly, except for the tens, it is enough to change the standing number. If in the appendix we shall see with the basic strategy for the hard standing number, because 10 is generally 16 hit for hands, or 3 or more cards, barely 17 otherwise. Table next to importance hard doubling down. There's not many pairings splitting squares. Learning, however, the 10 splits are quite important to players. Ordinarily dealt a pair of 10s on about one hand in 11. The frequency even higher with the ratio drops. Note that the 10 splitting and also 4 splitting occurs only against the favorable dealer's up card of 2 through 6. Once again, that sharp division between 6 and 7. Self-doubling down table at least important can be omitted learning of the approximate if desired. When most of the table 8-4 has been learned, the next stage is the approximate idea for hard standing. Numbers against 2 through 6 when the ratio is higher, but probably already have been leaning on the situation for the previous profession. For provisioning the table 8-3 are for experts. Alright, rates per profit. By the time the reader should be wondering whether the 10 count strategy will win enough faster than 5 count strategy to justify extra work involved in learning playing it. Table 8-5 illustrates the rate with the 10 count system when the ratio is calculated and recorded with a computer of 100,000 hands. The results are typical arrived at the actual play. The table 8-5 of the read is filed with the 25 cards are dealt off the top of the well, shuffled to the pack. Counted by a player, the player will find when the ratio of 1.0 less will occur with only 1/10 of the percent of the time. The ratio of 1.7 less for the above the 1.6 will not occur at all. Ratios of 1.8 less than above than 1.7 will occur at 14.5% of the time. The ratio of the 1.8 less than with the 24.0% of the time. The last figure is obtained adding all the figures of the 25 card column up. 2, including the ratio of 1718, namely 01, 05, 2.0, 6.9, 14.5 equals 24. Another table 8-5 with the player counts 10s has advantage of 1% or more. Ratio of 2.0 or less above a third of the time. That turns out with the advantage of the ranges between 1% of the favor of the player card, percent with the favor of the housing with a third or one time, and about with the house with the advantage of 1% with the more about the third time. When more one player's table of the 10 strategy loses somewhat efficiency, but the decline is not nearly as sharp as the 5 strategies. Study has shown the scheme of the betting and this gives the very good protection against ruin, while also providing a large yield of risk, a percent of the initial capital equal to percentage advantage. For example, with $200 at 3% advantage would be $6 for the 10% advantage would be 20. And with 1% advantage between $2 situation less favorable to 1%, but a minimum $1. And the test system is described in Chapter 5 of the modified proportional being used with the 1 unit minimum with advantage for the below 1% with the 2 units with the 1% advantage, 4 units with 2% advantage, so on upon 10 units with the 5% advantage, above 5%. All bets were leveled off with the 10 units to responsibility frightening the casino. The precaution turned out insufficient. Several users in the casino in present here with a widespread successful use of our methods in the casino and bet should be limited to the ratio of the 1 to 5 or 1 to 3, even the let kept in constant. There's a variation in proportional betting scheme in the foregoing discussion mathematically superior that involve a little extra mental work. In a player bet's amount with approximately proportional to his current capital amount should be equal to the player's person advantage. For example, suppose the player plays with $200 with a 10% situation. He bets $20. Suppose he later builds up to $300. He would now bet $30 in a 10% situation. It's not necessary to bet precise amount called for if any of the betting schedule for the results do not vary significantly, even with considering deviation from suggested amount. Including aces in an account, you resolve them to further adjust your bet with the side of the excessive shortage of aces. Well, aces are gone. Subtract 4% of the estimated advantage. When your deck has twice as many aces, normal adds 4% of your estimated advantage. We use some extreme cases to illustrate how aces can affect the advantage. Suppose the unused cards consist exclusively of aces and tens. I've seen the last 8 cards happen to be all aces and tens. How much should you bet? If possible, bet 1/2 your capital. Save the other half for pairing, splitting, and insurance. The dealer has ace up. The insurance prevent him from winning in case he has blackjack. If he lost the insurance, the dealer must have the pair of the aces must bust, and when he draws, therefore, you will win your bet, main bet. If he has 10 up, he might have aces under, consequently having blackjack as part of the time you Well, blackjack of the game will be standoff. The rest of the time you will lose, but this only time that you lose, the dealer has no blackjack. He has 10 unders also. Then an ace and 10 you win, or with 10 and 10 you can tie. If any aces remain, you can split your 10s. If you chance for the net game, with an ace and an ace, you can split. For sure win if there's cards remaining. If the deck is exhausted, splitting an aces against the dealer's 10-10 keeps your average loss fairly small. Forgoing discussion included to make it seems reasonable with that when hands are dealt only for the collection of ace and 10s, the player is greatly favored, and the detailed mathematical analysis confirm this. As you become comfortable with the 10 count strategy, you begin to keep track of the aces. The deck has excess of aces, increases your bet somewhat over that, which is called straight 10 strategy. On the other hand, the bet should be reduced when the deck has scarcity of aces and aces are poor. Must be more careful than ever when counting aces and tens. Avoid letting the casino know that you are keeping track of the card story of the junior illustrates put down to do with the colt, and when he has counting both tens and aces, beginning heavily. After a while, he made a maximum for him bet of $200 since he accounted shoved the variable favor situation. He was dealt with a pair of tens is still one with the aces unseen with the dealer had showed the 10 showing, but it still did not have the natural. Junior had seen with the burn card. I knew it was not an ace since there was only one unused card left in the pack. It had to be a remaining ace. Furthermore, the casino was at the time dealing the last card. The customary practice now is to withhold the last card to place it with a used card in the shuffle. Now placed in the situation, instead of knowing you get the last card of the ace, if you requested it, what do you do? Draw or split the pairs of tens? Junior asked. To double down on his $200 bet, pittingly, the dealer attempted to explain with the foolish free with the spender that he must have wanted to split the tens. They argued that until finally the pit boss was called over to settle the confusion. Now both of the dealer and the pit boss pleaded with him in an attempt to save him from himself. By the time the crowd employees also well as spectators had gathered, finally infuriated, exasperated with a long haggle, Junior yelled out, "Give me the goddamn ace." The card was dealt, and it was an ace. The amazed the pit boss paid with $400 escort our hero to the door, and of course he was barred for further play at the casino. The effect of the aces can be taken into account rather than precisely idea of the estimate relative to the ace richness of the deck that added to the correctness of the advantage computed with the ratio of their tens. For example, suppose there are 26 cards remaining, all 4 aces among them. Then the average number of aces is 2. The average number that can be computed is 26 over 52, which is times 4. Thus, in this case, the number doubling average, you increase your estimated average advantage by 4%. General formula for correction of the percentage edge due to the ace richness of the ace poorness. 13 aces, number minus 1 times 0. 8 of the number still unseen aces. N is the total number of unused cards. Negative figure mean for the deck of the aces for the player's advantage will reduce, perhaps that even eliminated altogether. Negative correction. If it's difficult to make with additional calculation while playing 10 trades, I recommend the reader who is counting aces as well with the tens merely lean in the indicated direction rather than make precise calculations. The remarkable game from a proper end play. A few years ago, non-legendary figure sometime that described a little dark-haired guy from South Carolina, California, were purposely avoided giving his name. Approached a large famous casino in Reno. Story goes that he explained he would like to play large stakes, a half limit or more possible. He wanted to private the game without publicity because he had tax problems. He had sat down with a carefully stipulated playing condition with the probability did not deviate from the spirit of the game. As a bachelor, still steadily earning 5 figures, he accumulated an appreciable capital, was able to no doubt convince the casino that it had been considerable more still. I was thinking it had a usual advantage, probably more happy to accept the conditions, although I do not know the detailed proposition, no hard with a reasonable guess of what we were. From what I learned from the grapevine, it seemed likely that I call end play with the described below with the main ingredient, particular co-op. In such conditions, the game would as follows: the casino using the usual rules, drawing and standing, doubling, splitting, insurance are to be enforced. In addition to the deal, the player may vary with the bolts over the number of hands it takes, amounts he bets. Furthermore, the casino will deal down Last card before shuffling. At first sight, the set condition seems pretty harmless, but before it will see what happened at the casino in question, has examined the plays under the condition more closely. Imagine first and seventh cards, all aces and tens remain to be played, but it happens if you decide to take exactly 3 hands and pick it up. Your 3 hands, you find each one of them consisted with an ace, an ace, an ace, a 10, and 10, and 10. If you, however, receives only 1 ace or 1 10, as soon as the deck runs out, then we must shuffle before getting his next card. You now have the 3 powerful hands facing him. Besides, he must draw the next card from the deck, the poor and aces and tens. Generally, all 3 of your hands win. Advantage frequently is 10 to 100% with the situation. Money is truly dizzying the rate. Here's an alternative variation. Suppose there are 5 cards left, mostly aces and tens, that you decide to take 5 hands. Then you give all 5 cards in this situation favor the group. The dealer goes to none of them, and for he runs out of cards, must shuffle before dealing the first card to himself. If you know you now get 10 as your first card, that gives up 15 to 20% advantage. Starting with the ace gives you 35 to 40% advantage. It happens instead of the end of the deck is varied with the poor with the ace and 10 with the 2 with advantage. Suppose you have 2 12 smart cards left with 2 5 hands placed with the very small bets on each. 12 cards are you dealing the hands. This is most likely small cards are involved. Some cards will draw and forcing a shuffle deck of the shuffle of the 12 small cards are missing. Therefore, new cards will without residue whose ratio is 24 to 16 or 1.5. A few cards will be drawn, although the ratio of fluctuates individual situation. Average will also be 1.5 at the end of the round. Those by 5 hands to keep the small cards on the table during the shuffle. The player has created a series of highly favorable situations. Now we return to the story. What happened to the casino? The little dark-haired guy said that they had played with terrible success of the nights. In the first night, he won 10 or $15,000 on the success of the rights. He lost 1 in similar amounts. When the casino became accustomed to the large surges, when he had cleared that they may be primed to hang on even though they were well behind, he began to play to win. However, after an hour of money piled up, said somewhere between $40,000 and $86,000 of the casino snapped and called off the game. Later, the figure is supposed to be an authentic one, but there is a variety of reports, probably because were only 4 witnesses in the game. The player and 3 casino people. His idea of the no publicity paid handsomely during the next 2 years. The little dark-haired guy sold his proposition to other Nevada casinos, and he finally barred throughout the state after he won more than $250,000. Of course, since nearly every casino in Nevada now refuses to allow in-play, the method is nearly dead. Many of the casinos are so intimidated that they will not set up the private games, but keep in mind it paid off with the Puerto Rican casinos for several alert readers for the first edition. Chapter 19, Betting the Casino's Countermeasures.